Benjamin Freemantle. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here, or not here, you're not here with me, but for doing this. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. This fine morning, I'm great. Uh,
Yeah.
I was going to ask you to start us off, what do you identify as? Like director, editor, writer, all of the above?
hmm Uh, I would say just all of the above. Like, I think that's what's great about especially like the East Coast filmmaking. Like, you kind of can do a bunch of different things. You're not really like in a box. I think that a lot of filmmakers just do I don't know anyone who only does the one thing. But uh, yeah, I'm a writer. I direct. I edit. I produce.
So all of the above I see and more. Um, okay, well, you graduated from NYU in 2019. So how do you feel now, a year and a half later?
It was not the year that I was expecting.
Sure, for sure, yeah.
Not sure it was the year that anyone was expecting. Um, yeah, I mean, all things considered, I feel okay. Um, the world is in a strange spot right now, and we're all dealing with that. But um, the challenges of this year were not what I was expecting. Uh, but I'm active in the art world, and I'm actively working, and so like all that stuff is going like super well. Um, and through it all, I've got to be with family for a good portion of it. So I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I feel like there's something about, when there's a global pandemic going on and you feel less pressure to like, oh, like, do I have my life figured out? I don't know, but also no one does. So that's all
Yeah.
right. Like,
But yeah, I think that's exactly what I mean. That there's not that pressure right now of, um, I mean, saying that comes from a place of privilege as well, because not every like this has affected so many people in so many ways, and you know, uh, there are challenges that I don't have right now that I know that a lot of people have, and a lot of people in the film industry as well are like without work and um, without a place to live. So like all of that stuff is hard to reckon with. Um, Not to mention the thousands of people who've been affected by this disease, as well as the racial discord, as well as you're 6 weeks away from an election in the U.S. right now. So all of those things are just uh, made it even added fuel to the flame. But just persevering, keeping on, and doing hoping to do my part to help out any way I can.
for sure. So let's dive into your work a little bit. So, what can you tell us about Squeak and our problem?
Uh huh.
Uh
So, uh huh.
huh.
They're past works of mine. I did Squeak 3 years ago while I was at NYU.
3 years ago?
I think so. It would
Wow,
have been second year. I don't.
been 3 years. That is
Maybe,
wild.
maybe
All right.
it feels like shorter and longer. 2020 has felt like it's been like 10 years, so I'm not actually really sure. But I think I finished it 2 or 3 years ago. Um, it's a story about a young kid who goes on this like adventure to try to kill what he thinks is a mouse that's like creaking in the walls, only to arrive at his like mom's bedroom, and to find that those are his mom's bed squeaks are what's keeping him up. Uh, and so it's kind of a story of just like combining just like ultimate innocence with like something that's like super mature, and trying to do it in a sincere way where it kind of throws a spotlight on the mom, and the lies that she tells her kid, is that to protect him, or is that to protect herself? um, and I just really loved playing with the idea of like there are two different worlds kind of, you know, superimposed right on top of each other, and you kind of live this experience through the kid, and you're learning that like things aren't as they seem, but also uh, with senses, like he's hearing these things and he's has this idea in his mind, but then once you add on another layer of like he finally sees it, it's something completely different. um, so it was a really fun experiment, and I learned a lot. And
And you had to work with the kid, right? Like
I
as a
did have to work with a kid.
how was that?
It was good. Like great actor, definitely challenges. Um, not to mention just like logistically, like, you know, you have to uh, work around uh, restrictions that are put in place that are really, you know, valuable and good that they're there, but like you don't get as long of a shoot day.
Right.
Um, and uh, you have to direct in a completely different way, which is something that like I was not used to. And I'll be better prepared for the next go. But there are definitely mistakes that I had made, and things that I wish that I knew going in, that made it just that much more difficult.
Right. Right. So what about our problem?
So that's exciting. I finished that like 2 weeks ago, actually, and now I'm starting to submit it. That was my thesis project for my undergrad at NYU, and that's a story about a recent college grad who's biracial who gets torn apart by the two sides of his family at a, you know, family reunion. And so his two halves kind of become these like foes that are trying to reckon with their newfound independence, and they um, eventually have to decide of whether or not this thing is going to work for them, and if whether or not they can live this way. So it's kind of like a surreal comedic reflection of like my own experiences being, you know, multiracial and multicultural, you know, growing up, and uh, that there's kind of this perpetual imbalance that isn't, you have to kind of realize that that's not something that you can solve or should solve. It's something that you should be comfortable with, that there's always going to be this type of like um, caught between two worlds type of idea. Um, and I'm hoping, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to do well on the festival circuit. And even though, again, it's a different year, so there's not going to be that same in-person festival type of experience. I think that especially this year, it's something that's like really relevant and purposeful, and I think it's going to resonate with like a lot of people.
Right. And speaking of the festival circuit, there's another project that we hope is gonna go to the festival circuit very
Yeah.
soon. So to give people a little context, you and I have been working on this project for like a year now, right?
Yeah.
Called "Where Are You From Again," which is a story about an immigrant who's trying to find their place in the U.S., both personally and professionally. And as a Canadian, you relate to this. So I was wondering if that's a theme that you see that like pops up in your work a lot, or that you're interested in exploring in the future.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, I think that's why I took it on. Maria approached it. I think it was over a year ago.
Yeah, I think it was. I think.
Yeah, that you like gave me the script, and I connected to it. I think for that reason, but also because, yeah, I think a common theme in all of my work is this like caught between two things type of idea, or like, yeah, like the feeling that because of one world that you're in, you have to prove yourself to the other world, like that type of idea. And you know, stuff like pride. So I connected to it in that sense. We've been working on it, you know, developing the script and then shooting it, and then
Making it a lot better. So basically, like, I came up to you with like a script that was, let's say, not good,
no,
and you made it so much better. So yeah, we started there.
Yeah, I mean that was a completely new experience for me. Like I've never directed something that I hadn't like written before, um, and nor had it had such uh, a great collaborative system that we had of like talking about it and then realizing what the story actually was and where we wanted to take it, and like knowing where knowing and learning what my job was going to be and what your job was, and like uh understanding that like our collective job is just to give this story the best that it can be, and um being able to almost like not as much take the pressure off, but just like be know that like if there's something that needs to be done with the script, that like I can just like tell you what I'm thinking, and then you can run with it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, like this is like great, like let's move forward with it. And then also with the different limitations with when we were going into production, um with a certain, I mean, there's one scene that we didn't even shoot,
Oh yeah.
knowing like it was all gonna be okay and that we could change things up and not sacrifice anything with the integrity of the movie. So that process was fun. And then going into post, which also had its challenges, not to mention a worldwide shutdown that made it all that much more difficult. But now we're very close.
We're very,
We're going to be submitting, I would say, in the next month.
yeah. Yeah. I'm very excited about it. I'm really happy that we got to work on this together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started to touch on this a little bit, but I was wondering what your artistic process as a director is. Once you're like, okay, I'm gonna choose this project to work on. Like, how do you start? What do you do?
Um, it's a hard question to ask because I think that I'm still finding it, and I think also in the nature of I pretty much every time, like when I get in the director's chair, I try to do something different every time, or like pursue a story that feels like it's something that I've never done before. Um, and then realizing, like everyone, we like to tell the same story over and over and over again until we die. Um, but I think that like I first just like sit with the script, and try to dissect it in every way, and look at it in a different way, and uh, tear apart the characters in it first, and realize like what each of them want, before I even get into any type of realm or world of what this visually looks like. But I think that the most important part of the process is just like uh, reaching out to people that I think would be good to collaborate with, and then getting their eyes in the script and being like, okay, what do you think? Um, I've learned through this process that like a lot of the times you you need to open up and ask other people for things, or like you can't do it all on your own. If you're like, ideas die in a vacuum. So I think that the most important part of my process is just like the conversation with other people, getting their eyes on it, and then trying to find ways that we can help each other to like build it. And in that sense, like at the end of the whole process, it becomes kind of this collective our thing, which feels better, I think.
Yeah, but it's also like such a hard thing to do to like ask for help to like give people, you know, like,
Yeah,
"Hey, what do you think?" It's such a hard
it's
thing to do.
especially like, yeah, because on Where Are You From Again, that was the first film that I wasn't the writer and I directed it. But if you wear your scripts on your skin, like uh they feel like it's yourself. And so to delegate and to let someone else in to then hear not just their feedback but also like their ideas, and having to like separate yourself enough to realize when you're hearing a good idea from someone and a bad idea, or you're just rejecting something because it wasn't what you were thinking. All of those things are like super hard, but it's a skill that you have to have.
Yeah, I agree with that. You wear your scripts on your skin. That's I'll quote you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's mine. I like I've heard that from other people.
It's
I'm not
yours.
gonna take credit for it.
Cool, cool. So, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you've faced in your artistic life so far?
Yeah, I think that, and you've been with me along in this first one, just like getting the money to make something is difficult.
Triggered.
Yeah. Um, that it, I mean, it sucks 'cause you almost feel like you're an artist, you should be able to do things with $0, but that's not the world that we live in, and you
Actually,
want to
not
be.
the film world is not like
No.
when it's like you breathe and it's like, oh, $100. You're like, what do you mean?
Yeah, yeah, and like, and I'm someone, if the story is gonna not be compromised by shooting at an iPhone, like I'll be willing to do that. But there's like all these other important things, especially because you have to, um, you're inviting other people, and so people need to be fed. People um, need, there's costuming, and there's a world that you have to build, and all of that costs money. So uh, financial access, and also access to locations and the people that you want to work with, because that's really important to me. Like if I can't work with someone that I want to on something, um, I think that like moving forward, I'm just gonna push past and circle back when I can work with the people that I want to on something, like especially with an actor, because if it's, they give life to your movies, and if the person that you knew was going to give life to something isn't available, it's not worth doing. And I think that like creatively, the biggest challenge sometimes is just feeling like it's your story to tell. But like, I think that that's a very real question that like everyone should ask, like, especially in this type of, I mean, not just in 2020, like all of these questions about identity and race and everything they're just being asked now, but there've always been issues. But be feeling comfortable in yourself that like this is something that like, yes, I should be exploring. And if you would like to explore it, then trying to find a way where you can claim ownership and authorship without feeling like you're taking something that's not yours.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, last question. Let's end on a light note. What are three recommendations that you can give, whether films or TV shows or stuff?
Oh, I wish I knew that question was coming, because that's a hard one. Um, well, I worked on a Tiger Woods documentary that's coming out in December, which I think that you all should watch because it's really kick-ass, and I think that you'll all enjoy it. So that's coming out on HBO in December, so watch that.
Woo.
I think that the ultimate quarantine treat has been uh, Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix, which I've seen now 3 times since it's come out on Netflix. So if you haven't, watch that. Um, and then I was gonna say Tiger King, but everyone's seen Tiger King.
I've seen it because of you.
Oh, okay, yeah. Um, I'll recommend. Can I recommend two?
Yes, you
Two
can.
more, two documentaries, which when they came out were relevant, but are even more relevant now. 13th,
Ava.
documentary about the 13th Amendment, and then I Am Not Your Negro, which is a documentary about James Baldwin. both of which really blew my mind when I watched them first. And read, if you haven't, 1984, because it's a very relevant book for the time we live in.
Great. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.